6th of November, it's a Monday, 29 minutes to 1 p.m. here in Australia, my latest video blog. It has been a very, I wouldn't say exciting time in the last couple of weeks. It's been a little bit nerve-wracking really as we come up to this SegWit fork, and because this whole crypto space is so new, that there's so many new variables, and there's a lot of resistance to and challenging the confidence is pretty much what's happening for me when I look at trying to read the market and understand, what we should be doing as an investor. Should we just be buying and sitting back, or do we get involved in these forks? Do we move our money from altcoins over into Bitcoin and play the game a little bit, or being strategic? Does it really matter in the end? Are all the cryptos going to go to $0? Is the whole market going to collapse? Because of all of these different challenges that we're sort of seeing in the news, and it can be a little bit unsettling. And I'm not immune to that either. And I've been doing as much diligent homework as I can. And I've got a couple of tabs open. I just want to cover pretty much what was going on. But everything is on hold really for this entire. I suppose we're seeing a surge through Bitcoin, and it's got to do with the fork, but I think it's also got to do with a whole heap of new things that are happening in the space. I think there's futures trading now for Bitcoin, and I've got an article open about how Japan and Korea are getting involved, and I think their ecosystem is really showing the community side of this whole space. Is that we've got technology now and all this social media, and I think there's people are closer. It's that old 4 degrees of separation. It's more true today than ever because of social media and internet, and the wave of information and hype and excitement can really spread very quickly, and that's why I think you'll find in a lot of the Asian markets there's a lot of loyalty and a lot of probably sloshing towards particular interests. If one person or someone's having success on the markets in one area, I think like a swarm, people move over, and that's probably no different around the world. But I think some cultures tend to be a little bit more aggressive with those type of circumstances, and I think that's what's happening. But what is really going on here? Bitcoin's at $161 billion cap. And I mean that's just incredible. It's just gone through the roof in the last month, and even just getting my head around that, it was well under 100 billion not long ago. It felt like it was like 60 billion last month, and all of a sudden it's just taken off. And what else have I got here? Just click that. Yeah, so this is the coin market cap. The overall market cap is $198 billion, but it has been 200. So we have crossed that line, over $200 billion market cap, on our way to the $1 trillion club. And the way it's going, it's not going to take too long, 2 years maybe, because I think these type of scenarios will see there's going to be an exponential in the markets. The first 10 years it took to get to 100 billion with a little bit of resistance earlier this year, and then we've seen it double this year, and then I think it will exponential, probably go 3 times next year. It could be 500, 600 billion by the middle of next year. Bitcoin's just going to keep going and going and going, and a lot of people question why. What's the intrinsic value of Bitcoin? And for me, the intrinsic value of Bitcoin is that there is a lot of decentralization. You could say it's a trend. But you could also say the technology is stimulating new industry. There's the capacity for anyone to get involved and actually make money outside of manipulated markets. I mean, everything's manipulated, even this one. However, there's a little bit less manipulation in the sense that we don't necessarily have middlemen in between us and the decision. And that's one of the biggest things that I've enjoyed about crypto, is that I'm in control of where I put my tokens, what I invest in. There's no doubt some people will be getting advice from others and things like that, but that's the future. And there's a whole heap of different things, and lots of ICOs and lots of new technology. So it's very exciting. And I think the other side, one of the main intrinsic values of Bitcoin is the technology itself. And some people look at, and a lot of the bankers have come out and said, it's a speculative asset. There's no intrinsic value, and it's not true. It's what it can present to the market in regards to the whole financial system and privacy and security. And we talk about financial instruments and these decentralized applications that can be built on Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these other platforms, Digibyte, and I think there's a whole heap of other, EOS is coming out with a whole heap of advancements in technology and speed and being able to handle more information. So that's the intrinsic value, is the capacity of the technology itself. So where's it going to go from here? We've got the fork. I think it's on the 16th. I keep getting the dates mixed up. Something like 16th and 18th. In history shows, now I'll bring this up. History shows that Bitcoin, especially with Bitcoin Cash and some of the major ones, there's a big rise, and there's some late money that comes in, and some early money. I think last week or the last few days we've seen some early money, and I'm not 100% sure where it comes from. There was the CME news in regards to the futures trading, Korea, Japan, a whole heap of little ecosystems around the world, lots of money coming in, and obviously some of these corporate interests and major interests make the decision that they're in. All of a sudden, 100 million can come in over a week, and that's where we see these steady climbs, and then there's a retracement. So, but history shows with the fork that there's no doubt that there's a retracement of some degree on the day or after the day of the fork. However, with Bitcoin Gold, we saw it happen 3 days before, and I think that was because no one really wanted, the big corporate boys didn't really care too much about the Bitcoin Gold that they were going to get. So what they did was they not manipulated, but they took advantage of the market. They knew it was swelling, so they got out early and they could sell down into the energy that was coming up. We saw the alts drop really low, and it did cost me some position because I wasn't ready for that. And I'm sort of planning, I actually see that may happen again. And I think that's the biggest advice I can give is, it's the old, buy on the rumour, sell on the news type of ideology, is that if you can see a trend, the more knowledgeable that the market becomes, people get a little bit more prepared. So all of a sudden we're seeing the energy to these things happen, days before and weeks before it actually happens. So you've got to be ahead of the game and just get in and out earlier. Maybe just be prepared to take your profits, or make sure that you're prepared for the dips when they happen. Otherwise you can miss them. This is a 24 hours a day market where, which is very different to the stock market, which has set times and obviously weekends are interrupted, whereas this is 24 hours non-stop energy. So the market changes very quickly. You can have a dip over a 6-hour period or a day, and all of a sudden, if you've been out for the day, you come back and you've missed it. So that's the nerve-wracking and stressful side of it, because you tend to, it's very addictive watching the markets because it's so liquid, so there's so much energy in it. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say in regards to the market or the fork, is get ready, get early. I think if you are in it to sell, unless you really want this SegWit coin, and I'm sort of keeping my eye on it, there's a lot of speculation that Charlie, I think Charlie Lee may have been, is it Charlie Lee? I forget. Anyway, he was at a conference and he refused to talk about it. So there's a lot of resistance to the entire, I suppose, event happening. And the big issue I have with SegWit2 is that I think it's creating a middleman. And when I have looked into SegWit2, it looks like it's going to be an opportunity for some bankers, some ex-bankers, by looking at the people who are in charge of that are actually ex-bankers. And it looks like they're going to be setting fees for people to go in and out of Bitcoin. So that's what's happening. SegWit looks like it's going to be an underlying layer to the system where there's going to be some fees and things like that. And that's the issue I have with decentralisation, is centralised applications like SegWit. So I'm a big fan of trying to move away from that. Things like, the Verge currencies and these other, the traditional Bitcoin ideology based on the white paper as it was intended was decentralisation. So yeah, this is the chart. We've got the first bubble, then we had a retracement, we had the second bubble, so that's from May to July. We had some forks and we had some a retracement, then we had another all-time high and a retracement, and that's what I'm seeing. Every time we hit an all-time high, we have a retracement. Even on the short-term markets, when you have a look at Bittrex and you have a look at what's happening at the moment, we've gone up and hit the third bubble we're going to have a retracement. That's all I can see at some stage, and we've got to prepare for that. We can't just keep going up. We are having small corrections, which are healthy for the market. And if I bring up Bitcoin here, you can see this particular chart. This is just current from last week or so, and you can see the energy in it. This very high spike here, this vertical line, that was a completely manipulated event. I happened to be on the markets watching. I ran in from next door because I wanted to make some trades on some alts, because I knew that there was going to be a massive opportunity. Everything was just nosediving in the alts. Bitcoin was rising very, very quickly. The whole market took off. All the Autobots came on, and then we saw a flash crash of about $1,000 in Bitcoin, and it just went up and down for 15-30 minutes, and it was very confusing watching the charts. I didn't even know what the actual price of Bitcoin was, because it was moving so fast up and down, and it was a massive money grab, whoever was behind that. And that was definitely a manipulated event. And if that was on the stock market, that would have been questioned. But because this is unregulated, I'd say some of the big boys at the top are taking advantage of that. So when you see Bitcoin spike towards an all-time high, get ready for a big dip. And we've seen that once, two, three. We had a whole day of Sunday. It was pretty much a write-off. Then we had another all-time high and then a dip. And then another one we've had just in the last day, and it's pulled back. Now, is this going to be the start of the next big retracement when I talk about this bubble here? This one actually here. So we've got 1, 2, 3. When's the retracement going to happen? Logic tells me that it will be a few days before the fork. So some people are just going to, some of the big investors are going to probably get out early before the fork. And it could be, like I said, they get earlier and earlier and earlier. The fork's 10 days away. Maybe this weekend could be quite a big weekend of surging Bitcoin, or throughout this week. And like I said, there's going to be energy coming in and energy going out. So just be mindful of that if you are trading. I've got a certain amount of Bitcoin that I'm going to hold probably for the long term now. I did have it in a lot of alts, and I've sort of liked the idea that I've got about a 30% part of my portfolio in Bitcoin. It just seems to be a little bit more stable and steady, and I think once the 21 million coins of Bitcoin are all snaffled up in a sense, I mean that takes 10 years, it's still being mined, but there's going to be a supply and demand ratio really taking off in the next year. And that's what I keep coming back to, is that I do believe anyone that's watching this, if you've got the capacity to get one Bitcoin's nice, 2, 3, 5, depending on your ability. I know it's starting to get out of hand. It's about 7,000, 7,500, close to 8,000 US dollars. But if you can hold and bag 2 or 3 of these things, or even just get one, if you've got a little bit more money, holding 5. It's not advice. It is sort of advice. It's my personal opinion. I think by the end of next year, you've got a long-term 2, 3, 4, 5-year investment, which could just go through the roof beyond our comprehension, in the sense that this has never happened before in the financial markets, and I think that's why there's a lot of resistance from the big boys and the bankers, and they come out publicly and slam it, because they're trying to compare it to the existing financial markets and the instruments that are already available. And you can't, because it's got a limited supply, it's not being manipulated. In the stock market, they can release new shares. That's happened a little bit with Bitcoin. When they have a fork, we have a new one, and that has diluted a little bit of energy. But the reality is that Bitcoin at the moment is the peg in all the exchanges. You have to have Bitcoin first before you move to an altcoin. A lot of Bitcoin exchanges are set up around the world, so that's what you're going into. So there's no doubt over the next 12 months, 2 years, Bitcoin is just going to double, triple, quadruple, maybe times 5 in 2 years. I can just see that happening. It's actually probably the only surest investment thing I've ever seen, unless something dramatic happens. I'm not sure what that is. And there's only 2: turn the internet off, or the government in a specific jurisdiction does something stupid like try to cut it. But guess what? They're all in on it, so I can't see that happening. All the big boys are in on this, so it's too late. It's not going to stop. What else have I got? So yeah, get ready for a retracement after, maybe a couple of days before the fork, and it could be quite aggressive before Christmas. That's what I'm thinking. I think there will be an altcoin surge. From what I'm seeing, there's a very big domino effect, or sorry, no, more like a scales, or what is it, a sloshing effect. Bitcoin goes up, alts come down, they bounce. So if you're in the right alts, you could probably make quite a good margin. And I think the next alt run, logic tells me it could be quite aggressive if you're in the right ones, because once Bitcoin goes on a major retracement, technically a lot of these alts are already at the bottom. So I would say that a lot of money will go from Bitcoin into some of these alts, and they'll go to a new level that we haven't seen since maybe May. Because like I said, there's been a 3 or 4 month retracement for a lot of alts, even though Bitcoin's been going up. So that's what I can see, and I'm sort of playing on that, and I'm hoping that happens from my own point of view. And what else have I got? CoinDesk, that was just stuff. There was a little bit on why is Bitcoin going off, and there was just this talk about Korea, and I was talking about the word. The word spreads really fast in Korea. Once people are invested, they want everyone else to join the party. There's been this huge, almost a community movement around this. And I could say that's happened in every jurisdiction, every country. Anyone that's been in crypto since the beginning of the years had been really excited and probably told their friends. And I know that I've had 5, 6 friends invest, and they've made quite a lot of money, and it feels good. You want that for other people. There's some people who have lost money as well, and you sort of got to be very mindful, and that's been the learning curve here, is understanding what you're investing in and when. Timing is everything in this market at the moment because it's so volatile. But from what I can see is the Asian markets are going to go off, and they're going to continue to grow. I think that's going to be the catalyst to some of the other areas. I mean, China technically is not back in, but I reckon they are really. They're just finding other ways to invest, and whether or not they go through Japanese markets or Korean markets, or get someone in another country to do their investing in offshore accounts, whatever it is, I'm sure that is what's happening, and that's occurring. So the market's only going to get stronger. Western countries are going to get probably more involved because there's a lot more infrastructure and Bitcoin exchanges and ATMs getting in on the market. So it's only going to grow over the next period of time. But I've got this inkling feeling, and I'm not the only one. I think that Bitcoin can't have this really big surge that it's had. It's had a $2,000 surge. We've had some little corrections which have been really healthy, and that manufactured one I showed you was very, very healthy for it in a lot of ways. It took a lot of energy out of it. A lot of energy in the sense that any of the big boys that were putting in their money, they will want a return. And if that was one of the moments where they did take their return, and they've been taking returns along the way, then Bitcoin may just keep on going. But traditionally, Christmas has always been a bit of a downer, and after this fork, there should be a rush in the next 10 days, and after that, there would have to be $1,000+ retracement. I think we even saw one today. It was about $800, and that may keep going. Maybe that's the one that we need before the fork, but maybe there'll be 3 little ones before Christmas, and then 2018. Starting January 1st, or maybe even over the Christmas period. Like I said, the big boys like to get in when everyone's not watching. Everyone's on the beach having a good time for holidays, and then all of a sudden taking their eye off the game, and the market's taken off just before the 1st of January 2018, and it should be a big year. Back end of next year should be massive. That's all I got. That was a bit of a ramble. Let me know what you think of that. I'm trying to keep the videos just towards, I suppose, good energy. I don't want to go and talk too much crap. It's all relative to your perspective. I do have my Telegram group, which is Crypto News and Insights. We've got 31 people in there, and there's a little bit of rambling, a little bit of excitement. We do share a lot of little articles and screenshots, and we have good, intelligent conversations. As you can see, there's more paragraphs rather than one-liners, and no gifs of Lamborghinis and things like that. So it's good to see some intelligent people in here. Even if you're passively watching, we know you are, and hopefully you get something from what we talk about. We are trying to minimise our excitement and trying to shill coins, and it's too much speculation and that type of stuff, because people's money is very important. But again, you've got to show your own due diligence, and if you do have a question, you can come in here and have a chat with me and a couple of the other guys. They've been really good. So that'll be great. You can join me on Sebastian at Jago at Steam It. I make a couple of bucks for my articles there. That always helps. I'm not in this for the money. I'm in this because time that it's a lifetime over the next 12 months to get in. If you get in and get in the right crypto, by this time in 2020 you could be very well retired and doing what I'm doing, you know, buying stuff on islands and building resorts and things. I don't have that much money, but I'm doing some things that I've always wanted to do, and I think that's what this is about. So I'll leave it there. Have a great day. Hopefully see you in my Telegram group, and tune in to my next video. Thanks, guys.